Thank you very much. This is wonderful. It couldn't be a better night. Hi, Sam. It couldn't be a better night to talk about trees all night. I mean, it's my happy place. And Marshmallow Laser Feast, mouthful. It sounds like a catering firm, but we are into experiential art. We are a group of passionate people who are kind of makers, designers, programmers, enablers, came together to create and explore the world beyond the limits of human senses, meaning embodying something else other than human. So as an artist collective, we seek to find emotional resonance in scientific stories, stories that connects us to the more than human world, and coupled with emerging technologies, enables us to become something other than human. And how we do this finds different ways. So our work finds its form as sculptures, virtual reality, videos, but often drawing inspiration from the living world. And through these projects, we've been lucky enough to go around the world and meet with some of the most majestic beings, such as the giant sequoias. You know, have you ever been to Sequoia National Forest? Have you been in the vicinity of one of the giant sequoias? The idea of self completely dissolves, and immediately yourself is not that important anymore. But also when you think about what they do for the climate and how they live for 2,000 years, is incredible. You know, 800 liters water pulled into the atmosphere every day. This incredible plumbing that's going on. It is really humbling to think in your, very human space. So our mission often going to those places, capturing the beauty and the inner workings and the inner animism of these species, to bring their stories to remind us what we are actually connected to. And sometimes these projects take us to the Amazon rainforest to meet cebus and kapok trees. These are incredible trees. Mayan culture considers them the tree that connects earth to the heavens. Or for the indigenous cultures, it's the tree that holds the moon. And these trees been migrating. So this assisted migration that we've heard in detail as one of the ways to mitigate the climate stressors, trees are already moving away from us. This is true, very well documented in the States. Some of the species been traveling more than 100 kilometers for the last 10 years. And in the tropics, in South America, this is even more alarming, because we don't even know exact damage that's happening. So, but not all news are bad. I'm going to talk about some fun things. So these projects took us around the world, from under different canopies, different media, different medium, and eventually bring us here to meet and mingle with the most majestic oak trees of England. And I made few oak friends so far, and I go and sit with them, take few friends and introduce to them. And it's a wonderful way of making friends in a country that you are, getting familiar with. But then we were lucky enough to propose this idea to Kew Gardens to create a portrait of an oak tree, inspired by one of the oldest trees at Kew. It's a Lukum oak. It's a wonderful hybrid between a cork and a Turkey oak. And this botanic marvel stands there that looks completely different and sculptural from all angles. But for us, it was really important to look at the tree as a living being beyond our understanding. What does that mean? When we think about the trees in their, branches and roots going down, and the species that are living around them, we don't have a full understanding of what a tree means. We take anywhere from 17,000 to 30,000 breaths a day, a third of those breaths coming from the trees and plants. So you may not have met one of those kapoks, cebus, or this oak before, but you've been entangled and enmeshed with one of those trees every moment you've been alive. So just to remind ourselves this incredible invisible bond through the work that we are trying to create. And this ecological exploration taking us to a place where of the oak is a project, it's an exploration to see an oak tree not as a mere body of wood and leaves and soil, but as a living bridge between interspecies connection. An oak tree can support up to 2,300 different species in, on, or around its body. This is an incredible realization where we can see an oak tree is never an individual. It's a living network of relationships. So in order to explore those relationships, we wanted to create an artwork that consists of 3 different components. One of them is this large-scale video installation that currently sits at the Zion Vista, inspired by the Lucum oak, and through kind of advanced technologies such as LiDAR scanning, it's like shooting a bunch of lasers into the tree without damaging. Like, imagine loving something so much that the laser is coming out of your eyes and you see every crevice and detail in the body of that tree. But that wasn't enough because we wanted to understand the underground structures, the roots that goes deep into the soil, and then utilizing these technologies to create the most accurate portrait of a tree to see the hidden animism. There is a strange human condition, now they call it plant blindness. We don't really see the plants as living things as we do for the animals because they don't exhibit animism like animals do. So in order to overcome the idea of plant blindness, we wanted to create and show something that there's a pulsing heart in the middle of the ecosystem, the cardiovascular systems that are very similar to your own cardiovascular system. The mycelial bridge that lives underneath the soil takes almost 70% of the carbon sequestrated by this tree, distributes into the atmosphere and the soil system. So it's almost like this tree is upside down and farming the atmosphere to bring all those minerals and materials into the soil. And looking at those inner systems, you can almost acknowledge that a tree is never an individual and it's connecting all those other species to each other. One of the reasons we picked the Lucum oak, because it almost naturally creates these strange junctions, you can almost see different kingdoms of life connected to each other and bringing together all these in a single body. Using these LiDAR scan data that gives us a very accurate representation of the tree, but then using ground penetrating radar, shooting radio waves into the soil to understand what's happening in there to get that accurate picture. And combining this technique with computerized tomography to understand microstructures, because in every level of magnification, there is an incredible complexity that lives and governs within the body of the oak. So combining all those things to create a portrait of the tree that is both an anchor and a conduit as a network of living relationships that are tucked away and not always available to our human senses. So looking at the world beyond the limits of human senses and trying to provoke that sense that we are actually connected to these beings by simply breathing in their vicinity. And I want to touch upon some other aspects of the project. Obviously, Of the Oak is important for us, and it's been a wonderful learning journey, being able to interview a number of scientists and learn their processes. And Kevin Martin was one of the kind of guiding lights for us to understand this assisted migration, the place of oaks within our ecosystems, and what happens for the future. So we took some of those interviews and gave it to a series of writers like Lillian Paul, Daisy Lafarge, Marlene Sheldrake, who's a mycologist, to create a series of meditations. These are open-eye meditations that you can experience in your own time, sitting by one of the trees anywhere, to understand and see the world through the eye of a butterfly that goes through metamorphosis in 4 different body types in different parts of an oak tree. Imagine being that butterfly and visualizing yourself within that world. And obviously, eventually arriving in a space where you can see some of those symbiosis. And, you know, this one sentence from the Daisy's beautiful poetry stuck with us. There is more to an oak than meets the eye. This is true when we think about the ecological complexity, that a single oak, this study came in 2019 by Dr. Ruth Mitchell from Hutton Institute, and her colleagues found that an ancient oak tree holds 2,300 different symbiotic relationships within its body. How crazy is that? And Arios Faryon published a study last year based on Blenheim Highgate oaks that they found more than 4,000 species. So the longer we look, the more we are finding. And eventually, I've interviewed James MacDonald, a soil microbiologist who are studying the oaks, found more than 1,000 fungi species, not including bacteria. And when he actually contemplated and extrapolated the data, we were talking about tens of thousands of different species just within the soil, completely away from human eye. So a single tree is never an individual, it's thousands of beings embodied in one living rhythm. A rhythm that is too slow for us to notice. So I guess finding reasons through the experiential art to slow ourselves down to see this rhythm. But also, there are fun parts to this. So we've been going through every single specimen in this list and try to divide them. If you ever want to set up an indie band or a rock band or electronic music duo, here are your names. These are all oak-associated species. I can see a Dark Dagger rock band working really well. And all this data is available. So we wanted to extend the kind of reach and the power of the artwork into a realm where it goes beyond its vicinity. So where we can look at some of those species, but also you can sit with your own kind of favorite tree in your local park to experience these meditations, to understand how to connect with trees. Ella Saltmarsh produced this wonderful little guide, how to befriend an oak, where you can introduce yourself. You can ask how an oak feels, and maybe they will feel that water me. Other times maybe it's just tell me something nice or sing for me. But in order to do that, you need to be open to the idea of hearing back from an oak tree. Because this is a tree I stumbled upon in Turkey. It's the country that I'm from, and it looks like the beating heart of an ecosystem. An oak is the beating heart of this ecosystem. The oaks been in this part of the world more than 1 million years. With the last ice age, they retrieved, they came back. As they came back, they brought the animals and eventually humans. So our story has been entangled and enmeshed with oaks since the beginning of time. They gave us the food, the shelter, the spirit, the stories. Druids were the lawmakers and storytellers of Celtic culture. Druid means drew and wood, knower of the oak trees. So it's been enmeshed in this part of the world, in pretty much everywhere. Oaks are one of the most important ones. But I'd like to just finish on a dark note. Today, we stand at a threshold. There are 172 million oak trees in the UK only. Half of those species probably not going to see the end of this century. Climate stressors, acute oak decline will take them away. And this is based on the best case scenario. If you think about the worst case scenario, I think this is far more catastrophic. So this is a call. This is a call for the scientists, the artists, the custodians like Kew Gardens, to make sure this relationship doesn't go unnoticed and doesn't go disappear. We have to find ways to renew and repair our relationship with the oaks so they are remembered. Not remembered in a book, in an installation, but they're remembered in a policy. They're remembered in our homes, in our hearts. And so this is our, maybe the last opportunity to plant acorns in the human imagination one last time. Thank you very much.